All right, hello everyone. Welcome to Thursday Live. All right, my iPad has just told me I'm live. Yay! Happy July, everyone. I can't believe it's July already. All right, I'm gonna pull you guys up here on my computer. Perfect. Nice, I didn't have to look for very hard for that. Sometimes I have to look really hard. Okay, and I hope my power bank does not die on me here. I forgot to charge my phone before, and I plugged it in, and it's plugged into my power bank, but my power bank is only at 10%. So, fingers crossed, guys. I can get through this before I run out of power. I might see. I wonder if I can move I have a power cord beside me, but my phone doesn't reach it. Oh, the cord is stuck underneath my desk. Hang on a second, guys. Well, I don't think I'm going to be able to do anything with that. Let's see. It's like totally stuck under my desk. Well, we're going to hope for the best, friends. I'll just give it a minute or so, see if anyone pops on. I know people might be on vacation with Canada Day falling kind of in the beginning of the week. It's kind of a strange sort of time, I think. Some people may have had Monday off. Some people might have started their summer vacation, but we are I'll be starting my summer vacation on the weekend. We're going to go out to BC for a little bit. Not for too long, about 5 days, just long enough. So I'm going to get started so that if you're watching on replay, then you're not taking too long. Hello, Tina. All right, so I've got all 10 of the new Lisa Horton Color Shift inks. So we are going to swatch these guys together and then do a little bit of ink blending. Yeah, and just play around with these a little bit. Nothing super fancy, but yeah. So let's get going on that. So what I did before is I cut some white cardstock and black cardstock and just glued the black cardstock to my white because these are similar to the interference inks in that the color is different on white than it is on black. So you're going to get a different tone, a different color when you use a darker cardstock. So of course, if you use, like, let's say a burgundy or a navy blue, you're going to get a bit of a different color too as well. Hello, Matt. Nice to see people jumping in here. And yeah, and we'll do a little comparison as well after we swatch. I brought in the interference ink pads. I actually only own 2. I sent all the store ones over to one of the girls, so I don't have them, but we're going to do just a little comparison as to the difference between the two. So we are not doing anything fancy for this color swatching. I am just going to drag this ink pad, and I don't know why this is stressing me out that I don't have any scratch paper underneath here. I mean, my little desktop is wipeable, but for some reason I don't know. I can't do it. I can't do it right on top of it, even though I can clean everything off. So we're going to start first with, this one's called Golden Heather. And I kind of laid them out together with kind of the different, like if we've got 2 kind of purplish colors, you can kind of see what those look like. Now, right off the bat, I can tell just by dragging my ink pad across There's a lot of ink on there. These are nice and juicy, but I can also tell if you've got any interference inks. Oh, look how juicy that is. These are definitely more opaque. So let me just grab a little scrap. Where did I have my little scraps of extra cardstock here? I don't know where those went. I had like 2 little pieces. I just wanted to do the same thing with, well, golly gee. Every time I go live, I misplace something. Although, in all fairness, it was not something I was planning on using anyways. Okay, so I'm just going to bring in this interference ink pad because I think this might be nice when we've got these laid out together. So this one probably needs a re-inking, but I think you can see can you just see that it's a little bit more translucent? So we can layer the color on, but this guy right out of the ink pad is definitely more opaque. So we're gonna have to, I put a lot of ink on here, and we'll have to come back to that to see. I think you can start to see that golden color starting to come out as it dries. I know it is, isn't it, Tina? Okay, so that's Golden Heather. So now let's do Lilac Meadow. Okay. And now I'm totally stressing out because my power bank is shut off. Okay, guys, bear with me. I may have to just run and find a longer charging cord that will reach my outlet. So bear with me. You can watch this dry. Hi, Jennifer. Well, I just quickly run and I just got to grab another charging cord, okay? I shall be right back. 1 second. Okay, I'm back, friends. I just had to find a longer charging cord. I think I found one. I do not want this battery to die on me. All right. Okay, 1 moment. This might get a little shaky. Okay. All is right in the world. Perfect. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I just had to zip out to find a cable that was long enough. Okay, so now as we see this dry, you can totally see that nice opaque color we get. I'll try not to be so heavy-handed. But, okay. So let's move on to Summer Sky. I kind of got, they're like 2 shades of green. And I'm gonna, again, try not to be so heavy-handed. Oh, that's pretty. That's a very different green than what's on this lid. It's definitely a yellowy green, that's for sure. Okay, I'm gonna get those out here. Okay, so you can see as it starts to dry, just where I put it a little bit lighter, then you can see that little blue tones start to come through. These are cool. They're definitely different than the, a little bit different than the interference inks. The pads are quite, this pad doesn't seem to feel as juicy as the other ones, but I'm also trying not to be quite as heavy-handed. This one's called Avocado Gold, and it is a beautiful green shade. Okay, so we can just start to see that gold come through. So the one thing I'm noticing, now, like I said, I did apply the ink. I was quite heavy-handed, but it is slower drying than the interference inks. Noticing that right off the bat. So we might be able to do a bit more blending. Because the one thing I've noticed is the interference inks don't necessarily blend all that great together. I really like this color. This is called Lagoon Punch. It is very pretty. Yeah, so, and I would say too that these color shift inks, they're definitely creamier. A little bit more creamy than the interference. Oh, that's pretty. I like that color. Okay, now we'll go on to Under the Sea. How is your Friday going, everyone? Hopefully you guys are having a good Thursday, pardon me. I'm thinking it's Friday already. All right, this is a beautiful, beautiful shade as well. I probably should be applying this with a blending tool. I'm just going to grab a blending tool here really quick to just kind of blend it onto the black a little bit. Oh, there we go. My lazy way isn't great for coverage, but there we go. Ooh, this is a beautiful, beautiful shade. I think you can see right away that kind of creaminess to it, but yet we've still got that little shimmer. So it's definitely, as it says on the lid, it's a matte finish. It's definitely a matte finish with just a nice little hint of an undertone of shimmer on there. Okay, so that was Under the Sea. Now we'll do Coral Waters. We kind of have 3 different pinky tones, so kind of curious as to, this was almost like a blue gray, this Lagoon Punch. Okay, and hello to all who have just joined. If I haven't shouted you out by name yet, if I missed seeing you pop up, thanks for tuning in. All right, we're gonna go back to my lazy way, even though I prefer using my blending tool, but then I have to change my foam over and over. Oh, this is an interesting shade. I had kind of thought, well, I guess this is called Coral Waters, so that makes sense that it's got a kind of an orangey tone to it. And I thought it looked a little more pink, but this is really pretty. Okay. We'll set that aside to let it dry. My scratch paper is getting very inky, so I need to turn it over. And I've got ink on my fingers, so I'm just going to wipe that off so I don't get it all over the place. Sometimes I think I spend more time, hi Jennifer, I spend more time cleaning up after myself. Actually, it's looking for things. I spend a lot of time looking for things. I don't know if that happens to you guys, but you know when you know, like in your head, you're like, I know I have that particular stamp, let's say, but I don't have a clue where I put it. Yeah, that's me. I think that means I have too much stuff. It's time to do a clean out. Okay. I'm going to choose a blending foam. I don't mind choosing a blending foam. All right. There we go. So here's one thing I'm noticing too, is I'm blending this on here. If you've got interference inks, if you've used them, one thing I notice you end up with kind of harsh lines at times when I'll show you what I mean after we get all these swatched. And I'm just finding that these blend really nicely and smoothly. Okay, that's probably enough color on there. We can see that, start to see that yellowish tone. Okay, so that is Fruit Punch. And now we'll do watermelon spritz. And I'm gonna see if I can add that with, let's see, this was fruit punch. I'm gonna keep that blending foam there. And we'll go across the two here. Yeah, that's the one thing I'm really noticing. If you can see where this blends out really nicely. I think because it's a little wetter, stays wet longer, then you can really move that ink to blend it out and get a nice smooth blend. We might have to go over the top of some of the other ones, but I'll do that off camera. This is a pretty color. So this one is watermelon spritz. So it's gonna turn, I think you can just see it starting to turn a little purpley. I'm gonna add a little bit more ink on that darker side. There we go. We'll have to wait for it to dry, but I think it needs a bit more. Okay, and our last color is called Peanut Glow. So it might work better if I do kind of one side and then the other. Oh, it's almost like a goldy bronze kind of. It's an interesting color. So that one is Peanut Glow. And there are all the colors. Now let's kind of go back to this first one. Like, I don't know if you can see this, it is still wet. So this definitely is a slower drying, but now when I run my hand over that, I can feel it feels matte, if that makes sense. Just gonna wipe my hands off here. I'm kind of curious if that ink comes off at all. Yeah, so you can see that matte finish with just that nice hint of a shimmer. Okay. And then just to compare the two, here was the interference ink that I kind of just rubbed on the paper earlier. Okay, so what I wanted to show you then is just if we're trying to kind of how the interference ink, when we're blending this with a blending tool, for example. So this is, I just got ink all over my hands. Opal Blush Shimmer. So you can see I'm using quite a light hand blending this onto here, but can you see we kind of get a few little harsh lines. That don't necessarily blend out. But this ink definitely dries faster, the interference, than the color shift. So let's come in here. I'm just going to use this pink champagne color that I have of interference ink just to kind of show you if we're trying to come in here. Can you see how it just kind of leaves a bit of a harsh line when you're trying to blend this? So we do get a little bit of an overlap here with our pink and blue makes purple. Okay, but so let's take a look here at the color shift and see how those apply. So I'm going to use, let me just put that aside so I don't mix up my color shift and my interference inks. Actually, let me just bring in, I'm just going to bring in my swatches here of the interference inks. And then I think that kind of helps. You can definitely see that the finish It's definitely a matte finish. It almost looks like suede. It's so pretty. This is the color shift here in my right hand. So, so pretty. Okay, so let's work with, I have all these blending foams with tools on them, and I don't know why, or all these foams that I'm not sure what color's on them now. Okay, so let's come in here with Fruit Punch, and I just want you guys to kind of pay attention to how this, oh, can you kind of see how that color moves? Because it's wet, then we can really work at moving that color around. That's really pretty. The ink itself, it's kind of reminding me a little bit of a Distress Oxide. Just with the creaminess and the smoothness. Now I'm even applying a little bit of pressure with my blending tool, and oftentimes with the foam, if you kind of push down on it, you get some harsh lines that are difficult to kind of blend away. But this actually, like now I'm really getting the ink out of this, out of the blending foam, and yeah, the ink is just moving around really well. So you can blend out any of those harsh tones, harsh lines that you get. Okay, so let's see what happens if we, let's use the coral. I think that would be interesting. We won't blend the whole panel, but we'll just do a little bit so we can kind of see how they come together. Okay. So we've got the coral waters, and I'm going to kind of start off the page here. So you can definitely go over where this, see I've got a little bit of a harsh line, but I'm just going to come in with more ink and layer over top, and we're going to be able to blend that in. All right, really pretty. So I'm just going to come in with the Fruit Punch color we used again, and we're going to overlap that. I'm going to stand this up here, or actually I'll just lay it right here so I don't forget. Okay, and now look at how we can just overlap that. You can tell I pressed down a little bit too hard with my blending tool, but see I can just go over that with a little bit more ink. And now that little harsh line is blending right out. Okay, and then we're getting a really nice shade where we've overlapped. Look at that, pretty. And you can see you've just got the hint of shimmer, but that matte finish is really pretty. Okay. So let's see, let's take a look at this. Let's use one of, I'm going to bring in a stencil. Actually, before I bring in a stencil, I'm going to use the blues. And, oh, perfect. I've got a sheet of paper here. And I'm just going to grab a fresh sheet of scratch paper. All right. So one of the other fun things with this, it's like similar to the interference and, for example, like an oxide ink, in that it's water reactive as well. Okay, so we're going to use the Under the Sea, and I'll just show you, you can really see that shimmer there. And now as it's drying, you can really see that second color coming through on the dark cardstock. Okay, so I'm going to, okay, that's got no ink on it, perfect. And does this have ink on it? I think it does, yes. I'm just gonna get a new foam blending. And after this live, like I'll take all these blending foams and I'll wash them out, and then I can reuse them. Then I don't have to worry about keeping, you know, a certain color, each color with each other kind of thing. Okay, so let's work with our blues. And I'm gonna try to be quick, but I just want to show you you get some really fantastic results. I kind of did a test piece earlier, inking and then spritzing with water. Now I could just go over this as well with kind of direct to paper with the ink pad, but these ink pads are so juicy, then I'd have to hit it with some heat for it to dry faster. All right, so I think you can see as I just keep blending that area, it moves that ink because the ink is still wet. Then it really kind of pulls the ink out. But we're getting some nice matte coverage right off the get-go. So what's everyone up to for the summer? Any big summer plans? Like I said, I'm headed to BC on Sunday for 5 days. Always a good time to get away a little bit when Stampede starts because it gets busy. So I don't think I'll make it to Stampede this year, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Okay, so I'm going to pull in this Lagoon Punch, even though it's kind of that darker color. I'm kind of curious to see how these two colors will look side by side. Okay, and then we're going to blend from this side towards the center. So I'll just change my blending foam. Now I do feel that I think with these types of inks, if you were going to, when you're using them, I think that you probably want to have like you don't want to mix, for example, brushes that you use for dye inks with these. Now, I haven't read that anywhere, but I'm just kind of feeling, you know, it's kind of like oxide ink doesn't play well with distress ink. So I'm kind of feeling like these might be kind of similar. Wow, how did I get that dark? That was just from this. Can you just see that there? You can see how juicy these ink pads are. But we're just going to keep working that tool and blend, blend, blend. And that will pull that color out. Oh, and I got a bit of a harsh line. I pressed down hard on that blending foam. Well, that's why, because I have ink like kind of on the edge of my blending tool. The way I picked it up. So I'm just kind of working that ink off the edge of my blending tool, and then we'll just blend out. Okay. And I'm going to grab that lighter color again. It doesn't need to be perfect because we are going to hit this with some water. As I say that and try to make it perfect anyways. because we're going to hit it with some water. And all right. So this would be beautiful to experiment with making different backgrounds. Okay, now we get that. All right, so let me grab my spray bottle and let's take a look at what we get. So I've got 2 spray bottles here. So I've got the Spellbinders spray bottle and then I've got my Distress sprayer. So I'm going to use both. Why, you ask me, am I going to use both? You get a really beautiful fine mist with the Spellbinders. So let me just, like, guys, seriously, like, this is still drying. That's how much ink I put on here. So I wonder, you could probably heat emboss over these. We might have to experiment. Okay, so I'm going to give this a mist. Okay. And you can, I think, yeah, you can see that already. Can you see that color just kind of starting to come up a little bit? Here's my paper towel. Just going to press that. So the Spellbinders mister gives you a nice, beautiful little fine mist, but I'm going to come in with my Distress sprayer as well. And that's going to give me some bigger droplets here. Okay. Let's do one more. And I am using mixed media, Vicky Bouton mixed media cardstock. So now you can kind of see that almost like a little oxidized effect like you get with Distress Oxide. Okay, but I just want to show you the sample piece I did earlier because it's absolutely beautiful. You can kind of see like where the little water droplets went. It almost feels like it's translucent in those areas. And then this is coral, what's that called? There it is, Coral Waters and Peanut Glow. You can just see that, just that hint. So as this dries, then that shimmer is going to come out even more. And then you can just kind of see as that's starting to dry. So really pretty, really fun to use. Okay, so since I kind of asked the question, I think let's give it a try. I should have, yeah, I've got a couple stamps handy, so let's kind of see if this heat embosses and what that looks like. Heat embossed. So I'll just grab my Misty, and I need a stamp. No lack of those, but let's find something that is quick, but that we can really get a good look at how it would heat emboss. So we'll use clear embossing powder as well, but I'm just thinking if they're so slow drying, we should be able to heat emboss, which would be interesting. Actually, you know what we're gonna do, guys? Hang on, I'm thinking on the fly. Nope, we'll stick with the stamp. I was gonna do it with a stencil, but I'll do that off camera and see how that works. Okay, let me grab a stamp. Okay, like there really is no lack of stamps, and yet right now I'm sort of like, oh, where am I going to find one? Okay, so I just pulled this off my shelf. It's an outline stamp set, but I'm curious if this would heat emboss, how the ink would heat emboss. Okay, so let's do this guy. Oh wait, is this all attached? Hang on, something feels odd. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, clearly I haven't taken the stamp out of this packaging yet, because all of this is attached. I don't know if it's supposed to be attached. I feel like it's not. But you know what? I'm going to leave it. It's very strange. Doesn't it look like it wasn't like trimmed out or something? What does the package look like? Huh, I've never had that happen before. So I am going to trim that. I'm going to trim this off. I don't think it's supposed to be put together like that. I think it got missed and then packaged. There we go. Now I have a little tiny piece I'm going to have to, because I wouldn't want it attached. I'd never be able to line up the celebrate word. Strange. Okay. So for fun, let's see how this would work. All right, so let's do it in, you know what? Let's do it on black. What do you guys think? I think let's do it on black. I'm doing everything on white, but I'm curious now. Because it might make more sense if I was going to heat emboss, that I'd heat emboss it on black. So I'm going to use my anti-static prep tool. I don't know that I really need it, but just make sure my magnet's not in the way. Yes, it is. Okay, good enough. This is an experiment. And I'm just going to grab my clear embossing powder. And I've got my heat tool out. All right. So let's give it a whirl and see what we come up with. Let's use Golden Heather so that we get that lighter yellowy color. All right, we're going to ink up that stamp. And I'm going to stamp it a few times, because I want to make sure that ink stays super wet. Now, I did not prep my stamp at all, because you can see that's weird. I think the stamp is defective. Why would it have a little circle kind of right there? I don't know. Whatever. It's weird, but for the purposes of this experiment, it's going to work. So I'm not getting a great impression on the center here on this. But you can see there's a lot of ink on there on this part here. But that might be okay. Like I said, it's an experiment. So it's not stamped perfectly, but I think for the purposes of this experiment, it's going to be, I'm actually going to do one more time. I just don't know what color we would get, right? Because like as it dries, that second color starts to come through. So would you not get that second color if you're hitting it with embossing powder? I don't know. Okay, let's see what we get. So a lot of that is, like I can see as it starts to dry, so I'm going to do this one more time. I'm trying to get this little area here, but this stamp is not cooperating. All right. That's going to have to be good enough. Okay, so let's see what happens. So I'm sure this is going to emboss, but what I'm not sure is what color will we get, because the ink is definitely wet. So this is just clear embossing powder that I'm going over top of this with. So that means that whatever color is underneath is it'll maintain that color. So not perfect, but let's see what we get. And I'm just going to kind of put that wet wipe there for now. I'll have to take that to the sink later, give it a little bath, and let's see what we get when we emboss this. Okay. So if you've got the interference inks, you're going to be able to do the exact same techniques with the color shift that you can do with the interference. Okay. So this is interesting. So the ink definitely stays wet enough to heat emboss. But remember, we started with this guy. So you can see it's kind of a purpley with a little bit of the yellow in there, not a whole ton. But I think we should do it on, so that's interesting. I think I'd like to experiment with maybe like a solid stamp, like a silhouette stamp on the black, just because I think then you'll get that nice solid image and be able to kind of see the color better. I wonder if I have one handy. Do I have a silhouette stamp handy? And by silhouette stamp, I mean something that's solid. Hang on a sec, guys. Let me see if I do. I feel that while I'm talking about it, I'm motivated to try it. I don't know if I do. It might take me too long to find a silhouette stamp. Well, you can use my mirror blocks that I never use. This is as close to a silhouette stamp as I'm going to get. This is from my stash. It's like for doing mirror stamping, but now I'm curious what this color is going to look like if we used a solid stamp. If we're going to get the purple or like the purple goldish yellowish combination. In hindsight, this wasn't a great stamp that I chose to do this with, this outline stamp. Outlines are meant to be colored in, so it's kind of hard to see what the ink looks like. Okay, so let's try this experiment out again. We'll just use this nice solid oval stamp. We'll do the same color, and I'm not going to put any anti-static powder because I don't think it really matters. Okay, so I'm going to get that nice, and so I've got that nice and solid on there. Okay. So let's do that again. So you can see that, like, as soon as I stamp it, we start to see that goldeny yellow colors start to develop under there. So you can see that yellowish color start to come out. So let's maybe give it a moment before I hit it with the embossing powder. So it definitely stays wet. Now, I haven't quite decided what I would heat emboss, but it's kind of fun to experiment to see what works and what doesn't. So let's hit this with some powder. Okay, so you can see that as it's starting to dry, then we're getting that little, the other tone is starting to come out. So I guess what I'm wondering is that if we heat emboss it, does it kind of seal in the color? So where we're going to see both a little bit of the purple and a little bit of the golden yellow on black. Okay. Let me just move this. Okay, so interesting. So it's almost like a, yeah, it's like a lavender yellow, if that makes any sense. So I'd have to experiment a little bit. My stamping wasn't great because you can see it's a little bit porous there where the embossing, how the embossing powder applied. But that's interesting. So we get a little hint of the yellow, but then we can still see that purpley color. So I'll have to do a little bit more experimenting with this, with heat embossing on it. It might look better on white. I mean, you'll only see this purpley color, but it's still interesting. Yeah. Okay, so let me bring back in this guy now that he's all dry. This would be a really pretty background if you have like a under the sea type of, oceany type of dyes or stamps, but that's the water reactive properties then of this color shift ink. So quite similar to Distress Oxide. Okay, and I'm going to do some more playing on this whole embossing powder idea on black. I'm not sure what it would work well with, but I think with the right stamp, it could work quite well. Okay, so let's bring in these colors again. So just so you can kind of have another look at them. So this was the Lagoon Punch. So now that this is dry, and like I said, you can, and sorry, I'm just wiping my hand across here, and none of the shimmer is coming off, which is really nice as well. So the best way to describe these inks, definitely matte finish for sure. And very, very juicy ink pads. Okay, so this is the Golden Heather. So now that these are dry, they're finally dry. It took almost this entire time for them to dry because I put so much ink on. Okay, and then we've got Coral Waters. Now you can really see the blue on the dark cardstock. Just to kind of hold that up there, that's what the color looks like on black. Okay, so that's Coral Waters. Then we've got Peanut Glow. So it's very similar almost on the black as it is on the white. That's an interesting color. All right, then we've got Fruit Punch. Okay. And then Watermelon Spritz. And it's so interesting, like this color of all the ones we've swatched, this one looks the most matte, in my opinion. So it's kind of interesting how they all look different. And then Under the Sea, beautiful, beautiful shade of blue. And that green on the black is gorgeous. All right, this one is Avocado Gold. So another beautiful shade. And then we've got Summer Sky. So pretty. And you can see it's kind of neat. You see that little hint of blue even in the green that comes out. I'm not sure what the properties of these are, but they are beautiful. And guys, like, I'm not joking, this is still a little bit wet. Isn't that wild? And then we've got Lilac Meadow. So lots of beautiful shades there. You know what I think it needs? They need a yellow. I guess this is kind of yellow, but it reads more, it's like a greeny yellow. I'm going to play around with blending with these things after I'm done this live, because now I'm curious what kind of color combinations we can get. It'll be fun to play with. So there's just a brief look at the Lisa Horton color shift inks. So again, what makes them different from the interference inks? Matte finish, definitely a creamier ink, really nice for blending. The ink stays wet for much longer time than the interference inks. So if you enjoy kind of ink blending and doing various ink techniques, you might really like picking a few of these up to play with. Yeah, they are beautiful colors, Jennifer. Yeah, so that's all I have for you today. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Thursday and have a wonderful weekend and a great start to the summer. Hope everyone has a great start to the summer. Our newest challenge is live in the paper crafting group. And that is, we are being inspired by this Spellbinders DIY color deck card. And then this is the card I created, kind of inspired by this. And these color deck cards are actually quite interesting. I'll actually take a picture of the back of this and post it in the paper crafting group as well, because your front piece has your inspiration photo where you can draw from the colors, and then the back has, depending on the card, some of them have some like history of art on there, and this has got 5 tips for a creative spark, it's called. So I'll actually post that in the paper crafting group. So if you want to play along with our challenge, then you can be inspired by this or by something creative spark on the back of this. So yeah, join the paper crafting group if you're not a member yet. And also a reminder that Scrapaganza registration is coming. It is on Thursday, July 10th. So that's next Thursday at 9 a.m. Mountain. So you're going to want to set your alarm for that to remind yourself of when registration starts. And so that's going to be $80 plus GST for the 2-day crop. If you can't crop with us, but you're in the area, we are going to have a marketplace as well. So you're welcome to pop in and shop as well. And that will be a $5 admission to get into the marketplace. All right. So everyone, have a fantastic rest of your day and a fantastic weekend. And yeah, take care, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with me. Bye.